So much for the Thursday night road team woes as the Eagles covered their fifth straight on Thursday Night Football by handing Green Bay their first loss of the season. Where do both teams go from here? The Eagles also covered their 8th and 11 games as a road dog, so can Carolina and Cincinnati keep their positive road dog trends going? And Kirk Cousins gets another shot at raising his pathetic winning percentage against winning teams when he travels to Chicago on Sunday. Are we buying in? All this and more on OFN Today with Mark Lawrence of Covers.com for this Friday, the 27th of September, 2019 on the Our-Lads Football Radio Network. Brought to you by OurLads.com, providing the best pro and college football depth charts in the industry, and Covers.com, featuring live scores, stats, and odds, considered the most convenient and entertaining source for sports news and facts with over 45 million visits a year. Mark, I can't be any more proud of my accomplishments last week. Do you know what my record was?
No, would you please update me? I haven't seen the scoreboard. I'd love to see it. Thank you.
I went 9-1 last week.
Wow, terrific.
Yes.
If you went 9-1, that means I had a pretty rugged week.
Yeah, but I was very happy about that week. You know, sometimes when you look at games, I know you do. I'm just going to ask it anyway. When you look at games, like this week I'm not feeling it, but you look at games and you just have that feeling where you go, I really like these games.
Oh, I understand completely where you're coming from. You can look at a card initially and develop an opinion about it, feel pretty good about it. I can say this, though, that what I've learned in the past is more times often than not, when I take a first initial look at a card and I think to myself, oh my God, where are the winners? I can't see any in
Yes.
here. It ends up being one of my better weeks,
Oh,
inevitably. It's
really?
because you have to work down deeper, or the obvious wasn't so obvious sometimes when the card looks that good. So, it's kind of like, I guess, being able to look at the patient and decide, what's the best course we're gonna recommend for this patient here. But, the bottom line here is every week, every game is a different snowflake. It has its own little appeal and it has its own matchup to it, and that's what's intriguing about handicapping.
All right, Mark. Let's talk a little bit about last night's game. And again, as I mentioned, the Eagles kind of bucking the Thursday night road team trend where they just play on Thursday nights and they play well, they cover. But maybe more importantly, their first spot as a dog this year, they covered. So now they have, I think they're 9-3 in their last 12. I think that's what they are because they were 8-3 coming in, I believe. So maybe that shouldn't be a surprise. That's how they won the Super Bowl.
Yeah, they did. They caught a lot of people off guard doing just that, and I think they caught the Packers off guard as well. Green Bay may have had their defenses down a bit, just looking at a football team that was coming in really battered with injuries. But then, the line said something before the game kicked off because it went down to
Yeah.
Green Bay -3. And what that indicated was that there were players indeed that were going to play for the Eagles. Alshon Jeffrey made his appearance, and he was a big, big factor in the football game. And then everything just went their way moving forward from there. And even to the point where you saw Aaron Rodgers collapse like you never, ever do, blowing a lead like he blew in that football game. I think it was the first time in 59 straight games that he had blown a double-digit lead at
Wow.
home. Yeah, but the bottom line here is, the Eagles came in as a hungry, desperate football team. They really, really needed that win, much more so than the Green Bay Packers did, who had opened up at 3-0. So they came in the hungrier football team, and they played just like that, like the hungry dog they
Yeah, that was
were.
actually my one loss last week was Denver against the Packers. And that was really two plays. Green Bay's defense caused 2 fumbles. See, sometimes you get these turnovers, and you can tell it's a lucky situation where you go, yeah, well, but the team was lucky. You got a couple of turnovers. But last week, Green Bay forced the turnovers. So that's not luck. That's their defense coming up with big plays when Denver's defense just continues to not come up with big plays, yet they have Vic Fangio, and they've got Von Miller and Bradley Chubb, and they're still trying to figure out what the heck's going on in Denver. But still, it was big for Philly to go in and I guess wake up the Packers defense a little bit. They were playing so far ahead of themselves. We hadn't seen this Packer defense play like this maybe since their Super Bowl run. We'll see what goes on after this, but still, this is why it's so early in the season. The Packers are not in any way, shape, or form a favorite to win a Super Bowl. It's way too early, and I think they kind of woke up a little bit last night.
Yeah, they did. They got a little taste of reality last night, and maybe it wasn't completely unexpected, just given the fact that you looked at their games, they were allowing more yards than they were gaining, despite the fact that they got out to that 3-0 start, and a lot of it was because the offense was really lacking. The defense had basically carried the football team. So, you have to have everything working together on one page to be that kind of a team that looks like it might be destined for the Super Bowl. And Green Bay, like you say, is just not there yet.
Okay, now, oh, by the way, what did you think about those calls? I mean, I don't even know what to think about it because part of me believes that the officials are sort of doing this on purpose, like they're screw you. You embarrassed us last year, and you changed this rule on us because there's so obviously pass interference, and they're not calling it even when the coaches are throwing the red flag out. It doesn't make any. I don't know what they said today. If the NFL said, well, we got it wrong. Who knows? Who cares? But it's almost like if you're a coach watching the game last night, why would you throw the flag? Because even the last play of the game, the interception, and I didn't understand why they didn't throw the flag. They had a timeout. Throw the flag. It looked like pass interference to me. Not that they would have changed the call, but the guy was mugged, and it deflected. Interception. Game over. But it's just embarrassing. I mean, I just don't understand what the league is doing right now.
I don't quite get it either here because on that same play you were talking about, it certainly appeared to me as if the defender had his arms wrapped around the receiver before the ball got there. And that could have been an argument to be made in a pass interference overrule in that situation. But they opted not to do it. For whatever reason, I don't quite understand. But I think all these plays aren't being decided here on these replay interference pass plays by the referees on the field. I think it's going back to New York, and New York's making those decisions.
All right. Dallas and New Orleans will stay in the NFC East theme, and the Cowboys with a big game over the Saints. Of course, Cowboys beat the Saints last year when the Saints were on that roll. They were on a 10-game winning streak. So maybe the Saints would like a little revenge. And actually, now that I'm thinking about it, last week I had Denver as an upset play, so they weren't the one loss. The one loss was Seattle. It was this game because this was the game I just had the spread in. And Seattle, of course, losing to the Saints, it's one of those games where if you're the Seahawks, you feel, well, how often is this going to happen? The crazy, fluky plays that kind of took place. But if you're the Saints, you kind of take it and go with it. But I like the Cowboys this week because I know they haven't played the best teams yet, but it's national TV. It's a great chance for them to show everybody that they're for real. Look what happened to the Packers last night. And I'm still not completely sold that Bridgewater and this offense is going to be able to do much because they haven't done much at all. I mean, the offense didn't do anything last week against Seattle.
No, that was one of the biggest surprising inside-out stat wins maybe of the year we'll see when New Orleans beat Seattle but was out-yarded 250 yards in the contest. That's really, really head-scratching. But the bottom line is they come home with the win. Teddy Bridgewater is now 24-7 against the spread as a starting quarterback in the National Football. Yeah, so they're feeling pretty good with him in this particular spot because Drew Brees obviously sidelined right now, and I think he's as good a backup quarterback to fill in the gap as anybody that they could have imagined or wanted. He knows the system. Yeah, he's practiced with them for a couple of years now, so I think he was the ideal fit for this football program here. And sometimes when you win football games that you should not have won, like New Orleans, I'm talking statistically now, when they were completely outplayed, the next game is like a free pass. Okay, it's like, okay, we were given one. Now we can go out, maybe take advantage of that and roll this into another victory here. There's some really nice stats here in the New Orleans side of the game. We call these out in the newsletter this week, and New Orleans has been particularly strong at home in the regular season when they take on quality opposition, 800 or better teams. They're 12-1 straight up and 13-0 against the spread against teams like Dallas coming into this football game. And they've also played real well in New Orleans in games off of underdog wins the following week. Now, I would normally be looking to play against a backup quarterback in his second start after the first start because the team generally rallies around that quarterback. But in this case, I think there's a caveat or an asterisk exception because Teddy Bridgewater is not your typical first time starting quarterback. He's been there before, former Pro Bowl quarterback. I don't think he fits the mode this particular week. I'm going to stay with New Orleans in this game. I'm still not a Dallas
All
Cowboy
right.
believer.
Well, I'll go with the Cowboys. So we already start off this week like we ended last week, disagreeing
There we
on
go.
games. But yeah, I've taken the Cowboys all 3 weeks. They're 3-0. I'm 3-0. I'm sticking with it. I'll take the Cowboys and give the 2 points in that one. Okay. Let's also stick in the NFC East. Washington and the Giants. So now it's Daniel Jones craziness going on in New York, and they've got themselves a good quarterback. We always talk about how certain quarterbacks have to land, or certain players have to land in certain spots when they come out of the draft. Could it have been a better place for Daniel Jones to land than with Eli Manning, Shermer, the whole system? Everything is perfect for him. That's the reason they wanted to get him. They understood that. So I can, and we're already seeing it. Now, look, it is Tampa Bay, but last week, Giants were a good wager because the Bucs were a bad home favorite. In this situation, though, the Giants are a bad home favorite. They're 0-3-1 ATS, last 4 as a home favorite. Throw in the fact that Barkley's out as well. Even though he didn't play last week with the comeback, this is still a week to prepare for the Redskins with no Barkley. That's a big thing. And look, the Redskins aren't a good football team, but they're also desperate, like the Eagles were. They don't want to go 0-4. The teams that are 0-3, they've got pride. They want to play well. Look, as a fan, I would really like to see Haskins in this game. Haskins against Jones, that would be great, but we're not going to get that unless there's an injury. But I kind of think that 3-point home kind of deal that's going against the Giants might work against them. I'm not sure I'm going to take the game, but I would kind of think that maybe the Redskins aren't a bad play.
I agree with you. I think the Redskins are the right side of this football game, and for no other reason. First of all, tip of the hat to the Giants on the great job that they did in drafting Daniel Jones. They took a lot of flack for that move up, what they did, but they lived through it, and he does appear to be the real deal here. I don't know if he's as good as what they're making him out to be right now. They've got him as the next Tom Brady in New York
Yeah,
City
right.
these days.
Relax.
Uh, yeah, a surprise. But the bottom line is he did throw for 364 yards and 4 touchdowns last week. But the other side of the equation is this New York Giant defense is invisible. They play a Casper the Ghost defense. They're 31st in the National Football League in total team defense. And they win a football game last week, the Giants did, and were outyarded 131 yards, despite the heroics
Good
by
point.
Jones because of the New York Giants
That's right.
defense. Now, you couple all that together with this being Daniel Jones' second start in the National Football League. So now suddenly there's game film on him, complete game film on him coming into this contest here. I think Washington, with all these situations going on with the New York Giants right now, I think there's some value in this football play. And also go back and look Monday night football game, Bears and Redskins. The Redskins dominated Chicago in the yards in that football game. It was all turnovers that did the Redskins in, 5 turnovers. So you have what I call a double inside-out stat entendre here. The Giants win a game, lose the stats by 100 yards. Washington loses the game, but wins the stats in the football game. I think the value's in the dog in this game. I'll be with you on Washington plus the
Okay,
points.
speaking of the East, let's go to the AFC East. Huge game in Buffalo. Patriots and the Bills. Patriots favored by 7. They've won 7 straight in Buffalo. I like the fact that the Bills have covered 7 of the last 8 during the first 4 games of the season versus undefeated opponents. So I'm going with Buffalo. This is going to be one of my upset plays. And the reason I do this, and I don't do it all the time, I do it probably about 80 to 90% of the time, though, and I've mentioned this every once in a while just to keep reminding people, especially new listeners, in the NFL only, If I like a dog, I'm going to pick the outright upset because, as we've talked about over the last couple of years, when you cover in the NFL, you usually win. That's kind of the percentages. And that's why I've got 3 outright upsets this week. This is one of them. I think this is going to be a close football game.
That ties perfectly into my philosophy of handicapping football games, and it's basically 3 things can happen when you bet on a favorite, and 2 of them are bad. They win the game and don't cover, they lose the game and don't cover, or they win the game and cover. But you bet the underdog, 3 things can happen, and 2 of them are good. They can lose the game and still cover, they can win the game and cover, or just get blown out. So I like my chances of 2 out of 3 with underdogs, and I agree with you. If you're betting a dog that is what I'm going to call a winnable dog, meaning he's priced as a touchdown or less in the game, you have to back half of that play up on the money line, because half of the time they do win the games straight up in situations like
Yes.
that. And this would be that case with Buffalo against New England on Sunday. Now we know you're going into a lot of bad history here. Brady 30-3 against Buffalo. He's dominated them in the past. But my goodness, you take a look at who New England's beat this year. They are literally the sisters of the poor. They're 0-9, the teams they beat this football season. They put up all these hellacious defensive numbers against teams that have no
Uh-huh.
offenses. So, it's going to be I think, a little bit different case here with Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills this particular week. I'm with you. I think Buffalo, if they don't win this football game, I think they at least cover this number. I'll play the Bills plus
Yeah,
the
what
points
they're
with
going to
you.
be able to do, and see, the Jets didn't have Quinnen Williams or Mosley to be able to apply the kind of inside pressure, which is the reason they've drafted Williams, especially with an old quarterback like Brady. If you're going to beat Brady, you're not usually going to be able to beat him with your outside pass rush. You beat him with the inside pass rush. McDermott's an excellent defensive coach. This is one of the more underrated defenses in the NFL. I think they're going to be able to get pressure inside on Brady. If they can't run the football, this is going to be the first time that we're going to see some of the weaknesses maybe there in the passing game. With Gronkowski, of course, no longer there, and no more Antonio Brown. So, yeah, I think this is going to be a really good football game, and that's why I'm going to roll the dice on the outright win, which is about plus 270 right now on the money line. All right.
Yeah, always. Like I say, always, when you've got a dog that is less than a touchdown, you think they can win the game, back it up with the money
Okay,
play.
let's go with another big divisional matchup, Minnesota and Chicago. And I must say this. I must say it because I mean, as soon as I saw the line in the Chicago Minnesota game, I was like, who's hurt? Chicago. What happened? Gabriel? I don't care if he scored 8 touchdowns. That's not going to change the line. I mean, why are the Bears like a 1.5 point favorite? It's up to 2 now. What on earth? They're at home. What am I missing here? They're the dominant division team last year. They've won their last 2 games, and Kirk Cousins can't beat winning football teams. I just don't get this line. This is just look. If Kirk Cousins is going to beat me, then go ahead and beat me, Kirk. Because until you do that, I'm betting against you every time, especially in this spot where the Bears have covered 10 straight versus 500 teams or better, division opponents, mind you, coming off a double-digit straight-up win.
Well, to that, I'm going to say this, Greg. You see the other side of the field? Go stand over there, because we're on opposite sides of this football game. Okay? I'm looking at Minnesota in
You're
this
going. You're
contest
going with
largely
Kirk
because,
Cousins. I love it.
I'm not
Uh,
going with Kirk Cousins. I'm going with Mike Zimmer
oh,
here, okay? But I will say this. Kirk Cousins has thrown more touchdown passes in consecutive games than any quarterback in the National Football League. 19 straight games he has a touchdown pass. Not that that makes him any good, okay? It's just the bottom line here is that I think he'll have a better chance of finding the end zone than will Monica Lewinsky, I should say Mitchell Trubisky of the Chicago Bears, who is an up and down quarterback and really wasn't all that
no.
good last week. They put up 31 points and less than 300 yards of offense in the contest. What gets me to Minnesota here is the double revenge factor last year. Chicago took Minnesota out twice en route to winning the NFC North Division. That kept Minnesota at home from the playoffs last football season. And Mike Zimmer is a bear in revenge games. He has double revenge in this particular football game. And you're also coming in here with that double revenge chip on their shoulder here. Bottom line to me here is I think with Dalvin Cook in the lineup for Minnesota, they are a completely different football team. It doesn't have to all fall on Kirk Cousins because they can establish a running game suddenly, and that running game balances this whole offense out and makes everything different for Minnesota. This is a must-win for the Vikings here. They can't lose 3 in a row to Chicago, and I don't think
Well,
they
the other
will.
thing, look, Minnesota, this is such a big game because it only takes one game, it takes one win. And if Minnesota can find a way to win on Sunday, no matter how they do it, well, of course, you don't want Kirk Cousins throwing 5 interceptions and you winning, but you just find a way to win. That will take all the pressure off Kirk Cousins. The attitude, being positive in those situations, especially come playoff time. That's how significant this could be. If they lose again, it's just another loss to another winning team, and okay, we'll get them again next time. So for the Bears, probably even more pressure on them to make sure that they don't wake the Vikings up. They don't wake Kirk Cousins up, and make sure they keep him down. And that's where I'm sure that's the only way I think that they win this division. If Minnesota wins this football game, I think Minnesota's got a great chance then and probably becomes the favorite to win this division, unless, of course, Detroit keeps playing good football. We'll talk about them in a minute. All right, another big matchup regarding division opponents, Cleveland and Baltimore. Now, things aren't going very well for Cleveland, but in these spots, division matchup, nice rivals. They seem to always play each other tough. I'd rather almost be the road team here. Cleveland obviously played better against the Jets, and okay, Jets aren't very good right now. But I just think that maybe the pressure isn't there being at home. They can go out on the road, maybe band together, that kind of thing. 7 points I also think is pretty big in this kind of a rivalry. Teams split last year, both teams winning one at home by a combined total of 5 points. So I'm taking the 7. And this is also going to be one of those games, I should say, that I'll take the money line at plus 260. And we'll see if Lamar Jackson, now this is not a top team, but hey, this was something we disagreed on last week, and I kind of found it humorous. A lot of the Lamar Jackson apologists trying to figure out ways to scapegoat the bad performance for Lamar Jackson last week against a good football team. There's still a lot of room for improvement from Lamar Jackson. This is a good defense in Cleveland. This is a big game for the Browns. Just like Kirk Cousins in Minnesota, this is the type of game that could turn their season around.
Well, it can certainly turn their season around here for all the mistakes they made in the game against the Rams, and they were completely outcoached in the contest. Freddie Kitchens was taken back behind the woodshed in that football game. The bottom line for Cleveland is they get in and out of Baltimore with a victory. They're tied atop the AFC North, and the slate is wiped clean for Cleveland here. Okay, and so they can make that amends. They can get out of Dodge and do that instead of having to do it under the pressures at home. I like that situation real well in this football game. And I also like the fact that so too embarrassed was Baker Mayfield in the contest. I'd look for a vast improvement from him in this game as well. Surprisingly, Cleveland Browns owned 40 yards the better defense in this football game. The Baltimore defense really was taken apart by Kansas City last week. Cleveland's defense 40 yards a game better than Baltimore's. Baltimore owns the league's top-ranked offense this football season, largely because of the numbers that Lamar Jackson's putting up here. But I like Cleveland's chances here to get out of Dodge. Like you say, they played 2 very close football games last year. One little interesting, quirky note, if you will: Lamar James is 8-2 in his career. He's 8-0 against anybody that's not named Kansas City. He's beat all opponents that aren't the Kansas City Chiefs. But this line opened up Baltimore minus 3.5 before the games played last weekend, and now it's up to plus 7. I think that's a terrible overreaction, and I think Cleveland takes advantage of it on Sunday.
Again, it wasn't like Baltimore looked any good, and I think what it proved is, once again, look, if Baltimore feels like they want Lamar Jackson to throw the football, be a pocket passer, go ahead. If I'm the defense, I'm like, all right, great. We'll help you. We will do everything in our power to stop the run and force Lamar Jackson to throw the football. I'm just sorry, but Lamar Jackson, I don't care what any of these analysts on TV are saying, Lamar Jackson is never going to be one of these Drew Brees type 65, 70% completion percentage quarterbacks. He can be Michael Vick. I got no problem with that as far as somebody that can be ultra creative with his legs, with his athleticism. That'll open up the passing game to try and be a passer first and to throw as often as he had to last week. That means more passing, more opportunities for the defense to come up with big plays against you. And the more he throws it, the more erratic he is.
But let's call it like it is, Greg. Here, Lamar Jackson is a playmaker. Okay, first and foremost, I don't think he's a typical National Football League quarterback. He just happens to line up behind center and he creates plays. Baker Mayfield's a quarterback. He's got a cannon for an arm. And another thing, incentive for the Cleveland Browns this week was Rex Ryan going off on Baker
Yeah.
Mayfield. I mean, unbelievable for a horse's ass like that to make
I
statements like
know,
he made,
Rex.
saying that Baker Mayfield needs to learn how to see the field better. I'm going to tell you this: drafted by John Dorsey, a surprise first pick of the whole draft. He was drafted number one because he scored the highest AQI rating of any player ever drafted in the National Football League. That took over the Wonderlic report rankings. They're now called AQI, athletic quotient
Okay.
intelligence. So that and his ability for that is to be able to make plays, read defenses, do things on
Yeah.
the spot. Okay, and so my reply to Rex Ryan would be this: I would remind Rex Ryan that his New York Jets are not playing this week. They have a bye week, but in Vegas, the bye is favored 4.5 points over
Oh,
the Jets.
wait a second. That's my team. All right. Anyway, let's move on to another divisional game. Now, here's one that I bought all in on the trends because I actually had a gut feeling about this one before I even saw any of the trends, and that's Arizona Seattle. I think Arizona is close to getting their W, and I think this is a good week. Now, I'm not taking them to win the game. I don't think this is one of my upsets this week. I have three of them. I don't think this is one of them. This is the one of them. I'm just taking the points. And the reason and the trends here's several of them that will lead me to going with Arizona. The last six in the series over the last 3 years have been decided by 6 points or less, and that includes 4 games decided by 3 points or less, and one of these games ended in a tie. Arizona is 3-0-2 against the spread in their last 5 versus Seattle. Arizona is 10-2 against the spread in their last 12 as a home dog over the first 4 games of the season. Arizona is 2-0 against the spread as a dog this year. And then finally, Seattle is 1-5 against the spread the last 6 games before they play the Rams. Not only are they playing the Rams next week, they get them on Thursday Night Football. So I really like Arizona this week. The only reason I'm not taking them as a top pick is because I just can't take Arizona as a top pick. I'm not that. I don't know. I'm going to say foolhardy, but I guess I'm not one of those people that can go that crazy about winless teams. Let's just put it that way. But I do like all of the trends, and I also have that gut feeling that it's going to be a close football game, and maybe the week Arizona gets their first W.
Well, again, we're going to be on opposite sides of this football game here, and I'm looking at Seattle for a couple of different reasons. Number one, last week they were on the back end of losing a game and outyarding their opponent by 250 yards in the contest. Now they take out onto the road against a team that they pretty much dominated. Obviously, Arizona's had some problems in the past, maybe a different football team this year. It's not Bruce Arians' football team anymore. It's Cliff Kingsbury's football team. And I think he's still learning the ropes on the job here. The thing that jumps out to me is this. And if you're going to play Arizona, I would suggest maybe playing them on the point spread line and
Yeah.
not the money line, because you look at Arizona in their last 39 home losses, when they've lost the game at home, they've covered the spread one
Wow.
time. 136-2 against the spread when they lose straight up
That's
at
crazy.
home. So
See, that's
yeah,
that's
that's
one
a
of those
crazy.
teams that actually bucks the trend of covering and not winning.
Well, covering and not winning, yeah, only one. Like I say, when they don't
Yeah.
win the game, they don't cover the spread. Okay, so they have to win this game basically to beat that spread. and I just don't see this football team suddenly getting good
Oh, okay, got
uh,
it.
in 1 week. Okay, especially against the Seattle team, I think is awfully hungry, and you got Russell Wilson. I think is a total mismatch against Kyler Murray in this football game. When Russell Wilson has come off of a straight up favorite loss, as he did the last game, he is 19-2 straight up with only 5 point spread losses. So he plays pretty good when he's in an angry mood himself. So I'm on Seattle. You're in Arizona. Let's see how the ball
And by
falls.
the way, the other reason too is last week I liked Carolina, and I liked Carolina over Arizona. And I don't know, I'm not saying you, but there might be some people that look at it and go, "Well, I mean, come on, Arizona, they get blown up by Kyle Allen and Carolina. What does that say about crappy Arizona?" But I like Kyle Allen because I saw what he did at the end of the season last year. I knew the kid was for real. I knew that with the limitations with Cam Newton and his shoulder, inability to throw the ball down the field, and all that could open things up. And this was Arizona without Patrick Peterson. And I actually picked Carolina to go to the Super Bowl this year. And I don't know if you recall that when we did our predictions at the beginning of the season. So even though they lost early this year and lost Cam, I still have confidence this is a very talented team. So I look at it as, hey, Arizona just lost to a good football team, and Seattle, the offensive line still kills me. Now the couple of guys, Dwayne Brown's banged up. I think their center might be banged up. So there's a few things going on there. I don't think they're at 100% offensively. Carson's been fumbling the football. So, and then I go into that rivalry, like I mentioned too, with as close as these games have been recently. But hey, we disagree once again, and that's only good if I win. All right.
I understand.
So, speaking of that Carolina game, hey, you know what? I'm going with Carolina again. They're a 4-point dog in this game. And even though I took both teams and they both helped me out last week, I'm taking Carolina this week. They're 13-5 against the spread. Their last 18 as a road dog, including the cover and the win last week.
Yeah, it's hard not to like the Kyle Allen change at quarterback here. As we mentioned, we talked a little about last week. He was the starting quarterback at Texas A&M, and he's the reason Kyler Murray transferred out because Kyle Allen beat him. And so he went to Oklahoma to get out of A&M to do just that. He's a 5-star recruit out of high school. He's very, very, very talented, okay? And this could well be the last sighting of Cam
Might be.
Newton, at least with the Carolina Panthers, if not his National Football League career. I only wish him the best of success because I think he's given Carolina their best chance to win. Now, I would be on Carolina with you, and I do believe they're the right side of this football game. I'm not going to play the game, but I do believe they're the right side of the game. My only concern is it's that backup quarterback who made his first start. Suddenly, game two, they kind of regress. They've got game film on them, yada, yada, yada. I'm
Well,
not
that's
a
this year,
big
though, because
Houston.
remember, he did start last year. But
I
you're right.
understand. But and number two, you look at the Houston Texans. They come off of a miracle win
Oh,
last
yeah.
week. I mean, it's unbelievable. And their MO is not playing good football off underdog wins. When they take on sub 500 opponents, they're 1-12 against the spread. Houston, they'll come back to the pack in situations just like this. So it wouldn't surprise me at all to see Kyle Allen, who had more touchdowns in one game last week, 4 of them, than Cam Newton has had in his last 4 starts. I think this is a great move for Carolina to find Allen at the quarterback position, and I wouldn't be surprised if they win this game
Yeah,
with
see, because
you.
this is a the defense is strong. They've got Olsen healthy again. You've got Samwell. You've got DJ Moore. You've got McCaffrey. This is a really good football team that didn't look like it early. Mainly, well, the first game they almost beat the Rams, but mainly because of Cam Newton. So now they're getting good quarterback play, and we'll see how far that can take them. Okay, now the underrated game of the year possibility: Kansas City and Detroit. No respect for the Lions, who, by the way, I actually picked Detroit to make the playoffs this year, and they're off to a 2-0-1 start. I didn't feel too good after that first tie, after the way that we talked about it after that, how upset I was, and I'm sure a lot of Lions fans were, the way Matt Patricia and, of course, their coordinator, how they reacted to the end of that game. But give them a lot of credit. Even though Bevel and Patricia kind of screwed things up there, They rebounded. They've won the last 2 games. Yeah, you could say they got breaks against the Chargers, no question. But then they go into Philly and beat the Eagles straight up. And that was a really much-needed win to kind of prove, hey, we can win on the road. We could beat a good football team. And we'll see what kind of spark that gives them against a hot Kansas City Chief team. They're getting a big number, a touchdown as a home dog, an undefeated home dog, mind you. I'm a little bit concerned with whether Slay plays or not. He's their best corner. He's got to play. I mean, I don't know if he's going to. My gut tells me he will, but, I've been wrong before. But this is another one of my upsets. So this is one of my 3 upsets. I like Detroit in this one. I don't think they're getting any respect. I'm taking the Lions plus 240 on the money line.
The Detroit Lions, to me, are the Buffalo Bills out of the AFC. Detroit Lions is the same thing in the NFC. Undefeated home dog, catching 7 this week with no respect whatsoever. I can understand the line just given the fact that Mahomes he's put up 25 or more points in every start in the National Football League in his career. I mean, the kid is phenomenal. So it's very, very difficult stepping in front of him. But there are situations and cases to do just that. One of them is Kansas City's rush defense, which is absolutely pathetic. They're allowing over 6 yards a carry on the ground. And if Kerryon Johnson can take advantage, exploit that, it doesn't put all the pressure on Matthew Stafford in this football game. And I think they'll do just that. I think they're going to run right at Kansas City in this football game. The other side of it is you're talking about a Kansas City team that is a nice little trend here. Not so much a trend, but this is more of a system where undefeated teams in the National Football League who start out 3-0 and they go out on the road in Game 4. They're just 7-18 against the spread. So their undoing generally comes on the road for these undefeated teams at this stage of the football season. I'm with you. I'm on Detroit. I think they'll give Kansas City all they want on Sunday.
Now, one of my top picks this week is going to be the Rams. They're a 9-point favorite, 9 or 10. And I don't care if it's 10. You know why? Because Sean McVay has covered 5 out of 6 as a double-digit favorite. To me, this is just a talent mismatch. You don't have to be a genius if you covered the NFL to know that. Tampa Bay is 0-5-2 against the spread their last 7 after they lose a game as a favorite. They got to feel really the shell shock of losing that game to a rookie first start quarterback has got to hurt the confidence. They got to go from Tampa Bay, Florida, all the way out to California. The Rams finally get respect, but they had to with the line. I'm not sure why the line went down. I don't know what the deal is with that. Las Vegas is trying to tempt everybody to take the Tampa Bay Bucks. I don't know, or make everybody think that there's something everybody else doesn't know. But I think the Rams go out to get back home, and I think they cruise in this one.
This to me is one of the more difficult games because I can make cases for both sides in this football game. The largest case for the Rams is the 3-0 undefeated teams are really good at home in Game 4. Now, Green Bay tripped up in that role Thursday night, but this is the same role for the Rams coming into this football contest. And you take a look at what Tampa doesn't do in their last 19 road games. They've only won 3 of them on the scoreboard. Couple that into the fact that when the Rams win straight up as a favorite in a non-division game, they're 27-4-1 against the spread. So that's all favorable trends to the LA Rams in this football game. My concern for the Rams here, though, is two things. Number one, they've got a Monday night game up on deck next week against Seattle. They're 1-6 straight up and 0-7 to the spread before Monday night games. My other one is Jared Goff has not passed for 300 yards. Go back to last year. I think it's 6 or 7 straight games in a row. He's just not clicking offensively, Jared Goff, in this offense. They're not in stride, if you will. And if there's any role that Jameis Winston has performed well in, it's been as a road underdog. He's terrible at home. He's terrible at a favorite. But as a road underdog, Winston has made money. But I'm with you. I can't fade this 3-0 home favorite with this Tampa Bay Buccaneer football team that right now his offense is not hitting on all cylinders. I'm with you. I'd side with the Rams.
By the way, check
game.
that because I have it the Seattle Ram game being Thursday night football.
Thursday, yeah,
okay.
That's what I'm saying.
You just said Monday. Okay, just want to make sure everybody gets that. Okay, a couple last 2 before I let you go. Oakland, Indianapolis. Now, Oakland is a dreadful 4-14 against the spread. The last 18 is a road dog, including getting buried by Minnesota. We both loved that game a couple of weeks ago. Indy's a 7-point favorite in this one. The only thing that concerns me, the only thing, has nothing to do with anything except injuries. The Colts got a lot of key guys banged up. That concerns me when Hooker, clearly the best DB, is going to be out now for about a month. You take him out, you're now going to play a rookie, and he's a real key player in that secondary. Carr lit up the Colts secondary last year in Oakland. Let's keep that in mind. Leonard may not play again. The other corner, Desir, may not play. You got the two linemen, Lewis and Sheard, may not play. Hilton may not play on offense. That's a lot of key players for the Colts when you're giving up 7 points. That's the only thing that worries me. Otherwise, if all these guys were healthy, I would have been all over it. I don't care if the spread went up to 10 or 11 because everybody was healthy. But that's the thing to keep an eye on.
Well, I would agree with that. You've got Oakland in the second leg of this horrendous road trip here. 6 straight weeks away from Oakland. They're going to be going to London, England. That's never good for
When is that?
teams. Next week, okay?
Who are they playing?
So it's never good for playing the Bears,
Okay.
I believe. The Bears or the Jets?
No,
I
Bears.
believe
Yeah,
it's the
Bears.
Bears.
Yeah.
The Bears, yes. Okay. So it's never good for teams doing just that. But the bottom line here to me is I cannot lay the Colts minus points. This is a football team I think that sort of glues themselves to either having teams play down to their level, or if they're playing an opponent that's superior to them, they end up playing a little better brand of football here. Now they're playing a football team that's obviously inferior to them, and I don't know if they're capable of laying these kind of points. I think they're happy just to be where they are right now. If you take a look at their averages for the year, they're allowing 10 yards a game more than they're gaining on the football season here. A little bit surprising for a team that has a good record like they do to start the football season here. But I can't lay the points in a situation like this. Oakland is a bad football team. They're only going to get worse the longer they go into this road trek away
Yeah.
from home here. But put a gun to my head, I'd probably play Oakland in the football contest, but I'm glad the gun's not
Yeah,
loaded.
like you said. This is a situation where they're desperate. They know. You know what? We got this is especially if all these guys don't play. We have to take advantage of this. We got to win a football game before it gets really ugly. So that kind of desperation when you're and look at the Colts. Oh, we're playing the Raiders, and like you said, I mean, last week it was different because I didn't mind taking the Colts against Atlanta because the point spread was almost even. So you're not really giving too many points. It's like who's going to win the football game. That's why I took the Colts. I thought they were a better football team, and they proved that in the win. Tough for Atlanta losing Neal for another second season. I think this is it now for Dan Quinn. I really do. I think the writing was on the wall when he went and brought Dirk Cutter back to Atlanta. Desperation. I mean, what else is he going to do? Instead of bringing in somebody he doesn't know, let me just stick with who I know. But things aren't looking good for Atlanta right now. Neal is such a big part of their defense. They're a 3.5-point favorite at home against Tennessee. I like Tennessee in this one. And a couple of favorite trends from Playbook magazine that I'll throw out there for you. Tennessee 11-5 straight up and against the spread all time versus NFC South teams, including 8-0 straight up versus 500 or less opponents from the NFC South. And how about this? Tennessee's covered 8 straight as non-conference dogs of more than 3 points versus teams that are 500 or less. I'm taking Titans plus the 4 here against the Falcons on the road.
I can't argue with the side in the football game here, and I agree with you. I think Dan Quinn is on a hot spot. I think he's sweating bullets here right now as we're speaking. My only concern about Tennessee is Marcus Mariota, who is in a contract year, and players like that are supposed to be stepping up and playing their career years. He's not
Time for
doing
a
that.
change.
And I don't know.
Ryan Tannehill.
Well, it could well be. Okay, what I'm saying here is Marcus Mariota is not leading this team to the promised land. And he's getting sacked an inordinate amount of time. 17 times he's been sacked this season. 9 against Jacksonville last week. He's a human pinata, much like Deshaun Watson was last year for the Houston Texans, and you saw where they went as he gets banged around as well. The only other thing to Atlanta in their favor, I have a publication called the Midweek Alert, and it's all about stats, and it looks at games much like a daily racing form where we look at teams and how they're progressing each week in the stats. And Atlanta is one of only 6 teams in the National Football League this year that has outgained every opponent they played in every game they played. So really, they're playing a little bit better on the field than their record's indicating. So that alone would keep me out of buying into Tennessee because I think, uh, like I say, is playing a better brand of football right now than the record's indicating. But bottom line to me, I'm going to pass this football game, and I can make cases for both
Merry
sides.
Christmas, by the way, Mark.
Merry-
That
Merry
was your jingle, your Christmas jingle.
That was my
Okay.
Christmas jingle. Yes, it was.
What else is going on before I let you go at covers.com, Mark? How's things going in college football?
College football is going really, really well for me this year, having a great year in college football. And we're doing a big 5-star college game of the month this week. What's nice about that is all Playbook newsletter subscribers are going to get that play free on me. So if you haven't seen the Playbook newsletter, log on at playbook.com, subscribe, get that big 5-star at no charge from me. And you can also get that big 5-star at covers.com. I'll have that play posted. In fact, right now as I speak to you, it is posted. It's locked and loaded. The big 5-star game available at covers.com.
By the way, I got kind of screwed last night. I like Navy, and by the way, I did go with the money line, which wouldn't have hurt me anyway because they didn't cover. But Navy is like killing this team. They're completely gushing them with the ground game, and then not only did they give up that kick return touchdown, which completely changed some of the momentum there, but also the biggest was when Perry got hurt. I mean, he's such a good quarterback, best quarterback they've had since what's his name, the kid who's playing in the
Roger Staubach.
No, the kid is Keenan Reynolds, best option, triple option quarterback. I'll put it that way at Navy since Keenan Reynolds. And he gets hurt at the end of the second quarter. Their offense goes kaput in the second half. Those are the games that kind of irks you because you're sitting there, you're like a big dog, you're dominating, you give up a kick return touchdown, and your quarterback gets hurt, and you lose the game, and it's like, oh, I can't believe that I lost that way.
That's the classic case of being on the right side of a game where you
Yes.
didn't cash
Yes.
the ticket.
Yeah.
It makes you to scratch your head and move
That's
on
it.
to the next game.
That's
all
the
you
only
can do,
good
right?
thing about it is that you say to
Yes.
yourself, I lost, but I kind of really won.
Yeah, but I had the right side of that game.
All right.
Yes.
Appreciate it as always, Mark. We'll talk to you next week.
And my pleasure as always, Greg. Be good. Enjoy the games. I'll catch